first, do you want to kind of go into how you came into be part of the ElongFi team?
Sure. So basically my background's really more in cybersecurity, and one of my buddies, one of my colleagues, works for a big cybersecurity firm, and a bunch of his friends were the ones that really introduced him to the whole project. They weren't thinking about it in the way that we were. They were just kind of tinkering around with it, getting a miner, setting it up. And I know initially when he told me the whole concept of a very low maintenance, low power, simple device, and I can kind of show you guys one too here just to kind of put it into context. Here's one you can see here.
Wow.
Essentially a Raspberry Pi with a LoRaWAN module and a power supply attached to it. That has the ability to do mining and create a whole cellular network, and essentially compensate folks for helping to expand the network, as well as provide proof of coverage for other antennas in the local area, because that's essentially what folks are paid for when hosting these antennas. And at first I thought that it was just ridiculous, that couldn't be possible, and if it was, that more folks would know about it. Also at that point, I really didn't have an understanding of the Internet of Things and networks specific to it, and why and where the use cases differ from the wider application of like 5G networks. So long story short, he went about and took a leap and got a few of these, and I went over his house, and at that point in time, it was a really different time. He didn't think much of it. He just handed me one, and he's like, "Here you go, man. Go ahead and set one up at your house. Let's see how it does." And I'm one of those people that really likes to dig into the details of stuff and like start really learning and understanding and, optimizing the best I can. And I looked at the one I had and I was like, I'll put it in my house, but let me learn more about this. And I learned about it, and I learned that it's, a low power device. It only uses 5 watts of electricity, so it's not a power hog in any way. Internet, what is it going to do to my internet? Because you are still connecting this device to one's network. First of all, everything's encrypted, so there's no type of, and there's like a lot of hardening of the appliance itself, so that a very select port is open and no other traffic and no other movement or pivoting is possible. So I kind of looked at that aspect of it. And then a big concern of mine, and a concern that anybody has with mining, is performance, processing. What race am I going to be in as far as competing with others, and GPU cards, and having to constantly update, and then you apply economies of scale to that, and more organized structure in corporations, you really don't stand a chance, right? What I thought was really appealing to this whole approach, not only that it's a decentralized cellular network and everyone owns a piece of the network essentially, but the fact that the devices, you're not mining based off of power and processing power. You're mining based off of your geography, your elevation, your location, your proximity to other antennas. That's what matters. That's what differentiates the different miners. And essentially how it works is there is a pool of HNT, the helium coins, that are distributed on a monthly basis. And they're, it actually started out with 5,000, I believe, in the very, very early days. And they decided that just doesn't work. And to kind of motivate growth, that they'll switch over to 5 million. And they did 5 million for a while. And then they had a halving event this past summer. And that then now has become 2.5 million. And that 2.5 million is distributed, not evenly, but just distributed across about 300. Now I think the total is around 380,000 hotspots. Mind you, about 14 months ago when we started this, there wasn't even like 8,000 hotspots in the whole world, let alone, you could see the coverage map behind me, every major city, most of Europe, an explosion of growth in China, India, like over 190 to 200 or so countries have this, have these networks. There's a lot of interesting use cases. You have the city of San Jose, for instance, bought a whole bunch of them, and they're placing them in low-income housing in order for the earnings to then offset the internet access cost. for those homes. Or I forget where it is in Europe, Liechtenstein, it's like a very small country, and they're actually going to deploy a LoRaWAN network because of IoT use cases that they have within the mountains, and that they can't justify building a huge network. So basically, I started messing with it. I realized that this is something I want to get into. I got a more upgraded antenna, and instead of just limiting myself to my location, I said, hey, I got one of these. Everything I'm reading here is talking about the higher up it is, the above the tree lines, above the roof lines, line of sight is very key. As far as you can see is essentially as far as the antenna can see, and it can go up to 17 miles if you set it up right, even with only 5 watts of power. So it's significantly more range than like a Wi-Fi network. But it's not high speed. What we're talking about right now, and what these miners have right now in the network that you see behind me, is all LoRaWAN. LoRaWAN is has great range, but it isn't broadband. It isn't high speed. It's really designed for very simple Internet of Things devices, very simple direct use cases. So what's one example? Eventually dog collars, right? That you put on a pet, and it's going to be able to beacon every so often, here's where I am, and that's going to be tracked, and it's only bits of data, and it might only happen every hour. And the totality of that for the entire year might only be a few megabytes of data. So instead of getting, no matter how cost effective you try to make a 5G product, it's still going to cost so much monthly. Whereas that monthly cost could be the yearly cost when you buy data credits and you put it on the Helium network. Because you don't, obviously you can't use this network for Zoom and Netflix, and our devices don't connect to it, our phones don't connect to it. We'll get to where the network allows for all that and where it's going, and I'll actually show you guys. I actually have one of the very first FreedomFi devices. It's a 5G miner that's coming out. I can show you guys what that's all about. But right now, it's set up for devices that are made for LoRaWAN, very simple use cases, devices that you leave out in the field. A lot of times they're tied to some sort of battery pack. It could be like an air quality sensor. It could be some sort of temperature sensor. It could be moisture sensors. A lot of different simple devices that each one doesn't cost that much. And you can buy it at scale and be able to just deploy this network at a very low cost and get what you need out of it, and not have all this extra internet connectivity that you really don't need for these situations. So what I did was I found one of my buddies who I knew lived in a high rise. He was on the 24th floor. And I went up there and I checked it out and I looked around. And I was like, wow, this view is beautiful, man. I can see, I'm over here in Tyson's Corner. I can see far out into DC, and I believe what looked to be Maryland. Let me just try it out here. And I did, and I had amazing results. At that time, the network was really new. So, the rewards were incredibly generous at that time. And as soon as I saw that and I started crunching some numbers and kind of figuring out what it all could look like, I saw that it really made sense to just take a leap, jump in, and instead of getting a few of these, let's get like 70 of them, and let's really try to do this right, and try different places and different situations. And all of it was really word of mouth. There was some advertising, that we did, social media advertising, but a lot of it was just folks we know, referral after referral. As soon as one person, as soon as people saw that it was real and not some sort of like scam, and a few weeks went by and they got their first payout, they were very quick to refer others, and had organic growth from there. But that's pretty much where we started out, and we just kind of been scaling up from there, and really preparing for what's going to happen with the 5G network that Helium is also putting together. So in addition to this LoRaWAN network that's well built out now and growing every day, there is another network, which is this device right here. It's called a FreedomFi. It's a slightly bigger miner. It does the same thing that one, the other one I showed you guys, does, but it also has the ability to actually hook up to a 5G antenna and either indoor or outdoor broadcast 5G connectivity. And ultimately, starting next year, I believe the end of this year is where the test net starts, and they start testing everything out and making sure that it's working as intended. And then that transitions to folks being able to then set up a second network, which is this 5G network, which then is a big player in competing with a lot of the carriers out there. I hope that was a winded kind of background.
There's most definitely a lot to unpack there, but I'll begin with ElongFi. So you guys come as a service.